Imagine working your whole life to give your child the chance you never had, only to watch a school strip that dream away with one cruel, racist rule. An immigrant father in a quiet American town thought he had finally secured a better future for his daughter. But one morning, a shocking policy left his little girl humiliated, excluded, and treated as if she didn't belong in her own classroom. He could stay silent or risk everything to fight back. What happened next would shake the entire school district and force a change no one saw coming. Like and subscribe to join our community for years. Carlos worked double shifts at a factory on the edge of town, saving every penny so his daughter Sophia could have the life he never did. Their small home wasn't fancy, but it was filled with laughter, family meals, and dreams bigger than the walls could hold. To Carlos, America was supposed to be the land of opportunity, the place where hard work and sacrifice would finally pay off. Every morning he walked Sophia to school, holding her tiny backpack as she skipped beside him, talking about the books she loved and the future she imagined. Teachers praised her for being bright, kind, and eager to learn. To Carlos, those moments felt like proof that his journey, his struggles, and his sacrifices had been worth it. But beneath the surface of that picture-perfect routine, something darker was building. Whispers among parents, subtle stares in the hallway. Policies written in fine print that most families never even noticed, until they targeted the very children least able to fight back. Carlos had no idea that the school he trusted would soon draw a line that separated his daughter from her classmates, branding her as different, as less deserving. That moment was coming, and it would test everything he believed about fairness, belonging, and what it truly means to stand up for your family. The first sign of trouble came quietly. Sophia had been pulled aside one morning by a teacher, her usual smile replaced with confusion. When Carlos arrived that afternoon, she clutched a paper in her hand, an official notice from the school. It explained a new attendance and eligibility policy, stating that children of non-citizen parents would be restricted from certain activities and programs. On the surface, it looked procedural, but to Carlos, it felt like a punch to the chest. Overnight, his daughter was stripped of her place on the honor roll, barred from the spelling bee she had trained for, and told she could no longer represent the school in academic clubs. She had done nothing wrong. She had earned every accolade. Yet suddenly she was being punished for something beyond her control, her father's immigration status. The injustice burned quietly at first. Other parents whispered in line, pretending not to stare. One even muttered, "Rules are rules," as if fairness could be so easily dismissed. Sophia came home in tears, asking why she wasn't good enough anymore. Carlos tried to stay calm, to shield her, but inside, his anger was boiling. He went to the principal's office, hoping it was a mistake. But the cold response, "We are simply following district guidelines," left him speechless. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. A policy designed to make his daughter feel like she didn't belong. The days that followed only sharpened the pain. Sophia withdrew, stopped raising her hand in class, and avoided looking at her awards displayed on the living room wall. Carlos watched as the light dimmed in his daughter's eyes, and with it, his faith in the system he had trusted. But silence was not an option. One evening, Carlos sat at the kitchen table, staring at the notice again and again. He thought about the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the years of hard labor, the promises he had made to Sophia. He realized this wasn't just about one competition or one rule. This was about dignity, about her future. And so, with trembling hands but unwavering resolve, he began drafting a letter. A letter that would not just confront the school, but expose the policy for what it really was: discrimination. What he didn't know yet was how explosive the consequences would be. Once his fight went public, nothing would ever be the same. The letter Carlos wrote didn't stay quiet for long. What began as a plea to the principal was quickly shared among parents, then posted online by a teacher who couldn't bear to stay silent. Within days, the story spread. Parents, activists, even local reporters demanded answers. The school scheduled an emergency board meeting, and Carlos found himself standing in front of a packed auditorium, the air thick with tension. He clutched the paper in his hands, his voice trembling as he read aloud, "My daughter is not less. She is not invisible. She is not defined by my immigration status. She has earned her place, and no policy can erase her worth. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then came the backlash. A board member leaned forward, coldly reminding him of district standards. A parent shouted from the crowd, "Go back where you came from." The words cut deep, but Carlos refused to step back. He looked into the audience, locking eyes with Sophia, sitting in the front row, clutching her backpack. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with quiet strength. That moment, seeing his daughter watch him fight for her dignity, ignited something unshakable inside him. The room erupted. Some parents shouted in anger, others stood in support. The board scrambled to restore order, but the damage was done. The truth was exposed, raw and undeniable. The policy wasn't just a rule. It was discrimination, laid bare for everyone to see. Carlos raised his voice one final time. "If this is the future you want for our children, then you will have to answer for it. Not just to me, but to every family here tonight." The auditorium shook with tension. Lines had been drawn. The board had no choice but to respond, and their next move would change everything. The boardroom never fully regained control that night. Parents who had stayed silent for years finally found their voices, demanding answers and refusing to let the meeting end without action. Faced with a growing wave of outrage, the district caved. By the next morning, the discriminatory policy was suspended, and within days, it was permanently overturned. For Sophia, the victory was more than a rule being erased. It was proof that her worth could not be defined by prejudice. She walked back into school holding her head high, not because the fight was easy, but because her father refused to let her be erased. Carlos knew the scars of humiliation would linger, but so would the lesson. Silence allows injustice to grow, but courage, even when lonely, can ignite change. News of the case spread beyond the district, sparking conversations in other schools and communities about hidden biases buried in policies. Some praised Carlos for his bravery, others condemned him, but no one could ignore him. He had forced the issue into the light, and once exposed, it couldn't be hidden again. Yet the bigger truth remained. For every policy overturned, there were countless others still in place, quietly shaping lives, stealing opportunities, and breaking spirits. This story was not an exception. It was a mirror. And so, the question lingers. How many more children must be told they don't belong before we admit that the system itself needs to change? If this story touched you, don't just watch, be part of the change. Hit subscribe and join our community of voices that matter.